Welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today our guest is Allie Rivera. Allie is an actress and a producer. Originally from Cleveland, Ohio, she's moved quite a bit from east to west, studying at George Washington University in DC, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, and Boston University's first online degree program. After doing some musical theater in New York, she moved to LA, where she taught and directed children's theater at the Youth Academy of Dramatic Arts, and has performed and/or produced everything from Nickelodeon to horror films. She's currently doing voice work from home, as well as preparing for her next production, whenever it's safe to resume that. Welcome to the show, Allie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you, and I love your story just because, as we talked about before shooting, we've both moved around a bit, we've done different things, and just like me, you've been involved with youth for a large part of your life. But let's start back at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay, I grew up in Cleveland. My dad was on the radio when I was a kid, so that was kind of my first inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was a nurse. And so my dad was doing a play on one of the community theaters. And it was, I believe it was Babes in Toyland. And he was able to get me into the show. I was like 5.
Mm-hmm.
But I was hooked ever since then. I was taking musical theater and voice, and I was always doing theater, whether it was after school or on the weekends or over the summer, everything. I just loved it. So I continued doing that. Meanwhile, I was kind of one of those kids that did a little bit of everything too. I played basketball. I'm very short, but I'm very fast. And I did a lot of like social clubs and stuff like that after school. A lot of work with kids, actually, even starting in high school. And so that's kind of, and I didn't really know. I knew what I wanted to do, what I wanted to study in college, but it was not really what every parent wants to hear. I want to go to the arts. So we kind of made when it came time for college, I kind of made came to a truce, I guess. Went to George Washington University, and actually had a not great experience there. I just didn't really like it. I thought it was very cliquey. I grew up in different communities where it was kind of very diverse. So I was really looking for the diversity, and I really wanted to go to New York. But I acquiesced. George Washington gave us a nice, I got some great scholarships to go there. So I went. I hated it. It was super diverse, but only like within their little cliques, which was just so bizarre to me. So I came home after the first semester, and I was just in tears. And I was like, please don't make me go back. I really hate it. I was in a room with, it was a 6, which you're not a female, but I'm sure you have daughters. If you put 6 girls from all over the place in one room and then say, cool, you've never lived on your own together, go. It was not the best scenario. But I did I was really close with 2 of my roommates, and came back, kind of found my niche in the theater community there. We did some really amazing shows. One of my favorites was this production called The Reduced Shakespeare Company. And basically the show is you mention everything that Shakespeare has ever written in the span of an hour and a half. We did Hamlet backwards and forwards. We did King Richard as a football game, and Romeo and Juliet. I played Romeo, and one of the male actors with the big beard played Juliet. Very funny, a lot of audience engagement, and we had a whole section that we did just for kids, which was really fun. So that's kind of another area where I really learned that's something I really wanted to do. Cut to the end of the school year, and I don't know if you want to put this in there, but the very end of the school year, I came home from a cast party. I was one of the only freshmen that got cast in the main stage show. I was very excited, very proud of it. Finished the show, came home from a cast party. It was kind of late, and my roommate, one of the girls that just didn't get along with anyone, she started to pick a fight. And very long-winded story short, she threatened to have our financial aid taken away, me and this other girl. And it was. So it was Rivera and Vasquez against somebody else who was not of that cultural background.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really, again, I don't even know if you want to talk about this, but honestly, it was a big changing point for me, and something that I learned very quickly is you need to be able to adapt, and life isn't always fair. And
Well, so can we dig into this for a minute? Because right now, I mean, this is especially relevant with Black Lives Matter and what's happening right now with our country. And the truth is, discrimination happens all the time,
yeah,
and the cliques are everywhere, you know, nowhere more so than in high schools, right? So we know about cliques, we know about being targeted. So how did you deal with this situation? I mean, you said your financial aid was taken away.
yeah.
What kind of things could you do, or were you kind of, you know, hands behind your back, nothing you could do?
There was absolutely nothing I could do with the university, but we had to go through a whole student judicial process where, I mean, people were testifying on our behalf. There were five other, you know, there were 6 girls that lived together, so there was 5 other girls in the room that said she started it. She became violent, and she was the one that instigated the whole thing. Ran out of the room crying, saying that she was assaulted. So that brought in not only the university police, but the metro police. So once they got involved, it became a bigger issue. And then, so we went through the whole student judicial services. We had a whole trial, I guess, which was horribly unfair still. And
Right.
then they decided not to tell us until they split us all up. We had to, like, and it was during finals. It was a horrible timing. But then we didn't get that financial decision until like late July, which, as you know, admissions,
Yeah,
you're kind of,
it's too late.
yeah. So, but I'm a doer. I'm a mover and a shaker, and I know, I knew then that I had to take control of my own life, because nobody's gonna advocate for you.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents even, we didn't talk about it really until much later, where they were like, that was just flat out discrimination. Not only racially, but also financially. We didn't, not, you know, neither myself or the other roommate involved had the finances we both were there on, you know, generous academic scholarships.
Right.
And the other girl probably donated a wing or who knows what. But I reworked everything, and I found that the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York was accepting rolling admissions through October.
Hmm.
So timing wise, it just really worked out to my benefit. That's where I wanted to be anyway. I
Right.
kind of got what I wanted out of it, but at the same time learned a very big lesson about how people see you. And that goes for casting as well. I've never really quite known where I fit. There was a whole big boom of ethnically ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that that's where I fit, but that's not quite, but that still doesn't, there was just not a lot of opportunity really for that. You get into a casting, and what people see is, that's always been very intriguing, and identity, and that, you know, that's kind of been a big struggle for me.
Right. Now, it's interesting because having this experience in college where maybe it did work out better for you, and maybe it was really a blessing because then you were able to move to the place where you could thrive, and it was a better situation overall. But also in preparing you for life as an actor, isn't it interesting, the parallels here? Because this is something a lot of kids don't realize, but when you go to Hollywood, you get typecast, and there's a lot of things that are unfair, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know, your eyes might be the wrong color, or your hair might not be the right style, and it doesn't matter how good of an actress you are. If you don't fit exactly what one person or one particular person's looking for, too bad. It just doesn't work. Has that been your experience? And if so, what can you do about it? I mean, obviously the cream will still rise to the top. So how have you found opportunities for yourself in Hollywood despite some of those typecasting and some of those unfair situations?
You know, it really, it didn't hit me until I started producing
Mm-hmm.
and casting myself. So, or not myself, but casting
Others,
on the
yes.
other side of the table, and that was a couple of years in, a couple of years of a lot of frustration. And,
Mm-hmm.
I would get, I had moved from New York to LA, and the castings in New York, when they say Hispanic, that's Puerto Rican, Dominican, I fit right in there. When I got here, they would say Hispanic, and I get in and be, well, you're not Mexican. No, but you said Hispanic. So I kind of came at a time when we were still so very limited to what those breakdowns looked like, and
Mm-hmm.
now I'm seeing, specifically from, from Puerto Rico, specifically from, and people are getting more specific with what we are trained to see when we see somebody, which was very, very interesting. But on the other side, so kind of cut to a couple years of a lot of frustration later, not really quite knowing where I fit, what people saw me, because I would get called in for Caucasian too, and I see the girl sitting next to me, I'm like, I don't look like that girl. I see, I get called in for Hispanic, and I sit next to, somebody who looks more Mexican. I don't look like her. And I know, I get called in for mom. I look 10 years younger than the girl sitting next to me. You don't really know what people are looking, and what I learned is they don't really know what they're looking for either. And sitting on the other side of the casting table, it was really interesting to see actors come in. Some were prepared, some were not. As an actor, I wanted to hire the best person for the job. But there is a part of you that is trained to see something very specific, when you're looking at people. And we really, my partner at the time and I went blind casting. We didn't have a diversity initiative, which, but we wanted to hire more people of a diverse background or cultural background. That's really hard too, because I think as actors we're trained to fit in a certain way.
Right. Well, and the irony there is, if there's any group that's telling us that we should encourage diversity and be all inclusive, it is the media, right? It is Hollywood that's telling us that, but then within the actual industry, we're not always seeing that that's the case. And so, that's the world we live in, and we make the best of our own situation and try to move forward. But I think this is an important message for kids to hear, because I think we grow up in our own little bubble. Even you and I, having moved around a lot, you're going to have a bubble wherever you move to, and people are going to think generally in the same kind of ways and have the same kind of expectations. So it's good to know that, the world's not perfect, and we're working on things.
People are not perfect, that's
Right.
for sure. And never much more apparent than it is right now. And I think the dialogue that's been opened up about diversity has been a huge, huge step forward. Not hiring diversity for diversity's sake, hiring the best person for the job, but giving everybody that opportunity, and not saying, well, we need 5 Black people and 4 Latinos, and we need, 3 Asians or whatever. Like, it's so limiting because we're all a whole bunch of different things anyway. A good friend of mine is, I was just having this conversation. He's half Black, half Caucasian. And he grew up in Atlanta, where there's a huge, huge discrimination and, a lot of racism and everything like that. But we were just speaking, and I had an audition for a Mexican cartel, and I was like, I just feel wrong. Like, I feel wrong portraying something that I'm not, which is our job as an actor, right? Which is, it doesn't make a difference really in theater. You're so far away, nobody really knows. But so I didn't really grow up thinking that I was limited, because I grew up in the theater, so none of it felt limiting at all until I got here, and it's just so, one thing or another, and that's it. That's all you can be. I think a lot of that's changing. But he was talking. He's like, well, I get cast as Hispanic all the time. He's like, I'm not Hispanic. So is that creating another opportunity for somebody who does look different or ethnically ambiguous? That's kind of an interesting conversation to me.
Yeah. It is. Well, we kind of skipped over part of your story, so I want to backtrack a little bit. Let's talk from college to going to New York to their arts program, to we haven't got from there to Hollywood. So take us from the rest of your education in theater to how you made it eventually over to Hollywood.
I had a rough educational history. I did move around a lot in school, so it didn't. None of that, bouncing around really ever bothered me. I kind of liked it at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But so after George Washington kicked me out, I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, and I loved the first year, the first semester. Let me be specific. I loved the first semester. I had a teacher who to this day is just one of the most wonderful teachers I've ever had. She just knew how to talk to students, and really, I learned so much from her. I think that she was the one that I loved the most. That's important because at the second semester, I had a teacher I did not like so much. She was, I don't know if I can say her name, but she was like one of those purple-haired, my scarf matches my hair kind of old actresses that just never really made it, I want to say.
Right.
And she was fine. She definitely, and here's another thing that I've been dealing with a lot, and especially working on the business side of things. She definitely just did not like females. She had a thing for other females succeeding, I think. And that was a really hard pill to swallow. Right during the way that school works, your exams are plays for the most part. And during one of my exam plays, my grandmother passed away. So I went to the funeral and in Ohio and came back, and then the makeup was you could do like a makeup monologue or a scene from your exam play or what have you, which is just not as truthful to your performance, I think, in the whole grand scheme of what you've been working so hard for. But I did it. It was fine. And then that teacher failed me. It was that teacher's class that I had to make up. So she failed me. So you have to be invited back to the second year. So I was not. And you have to have an exit interview. And in my exit interview, they gave me the teacher that I loved. I think they just knew that everyone loved her. This was a really big, very important moment for me too. She handed me the file. She closed it, handed it over, and said, I can't even read this chicken scratch. I wasn't in the room when they made these decisions. I have no idea. She's like, you are so bright and so talented. Do me a favor. Know that this is the beginning of your journey, not the end. And that you are the only one that's going to advocate for yourself, that's going to create your own opportunities and take them when they're there. So use this as your beginning. And that was the best advice I think anyone could have ever given me, was to know that you have the power to control your own future. You're the only one that has that power. Waiting on other people to invite you back to a school, to give you the scholarships or, what have you. And of course, I promote education, but I just did not have the best version of that. But again, so then I sought more opportunities to continue my learning, and I did the Boston University online program. I was one of their first students, so it was kind of like a trial and error situation. And that was great, but I was in New York. I was working like 12 jobs and barely making ends meet. I was nannying. That's when I started nannying. And it was just too much for me. Some other kind of personal horrible things happened there, and it was just, everything just really started weighing me down. I knew I wanted to be in LA my whole life. I begged my parents to move me here when I was like 12 because I knew that's where I wanted to be. So I was I think I just turned 21 when I moved to LA, and I didn't look back. I love it here for all of its ups and downs, but I think having the backbone of the hardened New Yorker in me
Right.
was also very helpful. And all the rejection from the past, you learn that rejections are going to happen for your whole life. whether that's not getting the social worker job that you wanted, but there will be another one, or whether that's not getting the teaching job you wanted, but there will be another one. Whatever it is that you want to do, there's always going to be some hurdle that you're going to have to overcome, and you're the only one that can educate yourself to be better and overcome that.
Right. Now, if we're talking about rejection, actors and actresses know rejection better than possibly any other profession, because for every role that you get, there's 100 that you didn't get. How did you learn, or how did you grow a thick skin for that, for, you know, just dealing with rejection over and over and over?
I think I didn't really have a lot of confidence. I think I'd just been beaten down a lot over the few years that led me here.
Mm-hmm.
That my confidence just kept going, and I was doing a lot of theater in New York, and I was doing really well. I did some original vocals on some really great shows and stuff like that. So that was all great, and that boosts your confidence a little bit. But there were a few casting couch scenarios that just made me feel like, well, what are you really worth? You know, if all you're seeing is a cute girl, or all you're seeing is what, you know, so that kind of brought me down a lot. And then when I moved here, I got to do a lot of Nickelodeon shows and some Disney things, which is a different environment and altogether. And then I didn't get anything for like a solid year. And that was, you start questioning, you know, is this really what I want? I always knew that's what I wanted, so that was never really a question for me. But I noticed there is a thing, like every 2 years, your friends are gonna move back because they'll give up, because that's the easy thing to do. Yeah. But I never had a fallback plan. This was always what I wanted to do.
That's amazing, because it is so hard to make it and to last in Hollywood. Did you have a moment where you just felt, I belong here, where enough things went right, where you got the right role, where you just felt like this is the right place for me? Or did you just feel that way all along?
I think kind of going back to when I was sitting on the other side of the casting, and I saw actor after actor come in so nervous. Like, oh my God, that's what they see. They see the nerves. They see your insecurities. So like that experience alone really made me just it kind of clicked for me, where I said, oh wait, if I can just go in confident enough, like do the work ahead. And that's the other thing too. I noticed a lot of actors out here don't actually want to do the work. Right. So they say they're acting, but they don't go to their auditions. They say they're acting, they don't prepare for their auditions. They just don't really want to do the work. So those actors, though, are the ones that do the work, are the ones that I consistently see getting guest stars and co-stars and recurring roles on TV, a new indie feature, a new whatever. And I've seen some people's careers grow with me, and that's been so fantastic to see, because those are the people that deserve it. They're the ones that also, they go into the audition just saying, nope, it's my role. That's it.
So you talked a little bit about nerves and confidence, and this is something that all kids are going to deal with at some point, whether it's for something they're involved with at school, or when I was in high school, I wanted to do musical theater too, but I wasn't very talented, and so for me the nerves weren't performing, it was auditioning. Like I was scared to death to audition for a musical or whatever. What were some of the things that you've done to help with just building your confidence and getting over those nerves?
I still, with as much musical theater as I've done, by the way, none of that ever got better. I still like freak out if I have to sing in front of people, but like I hate doing karaoke, but it's something that I'm good at. I like to do it once I get the part. You just have to kind of, there is that it's a whole different world of self-belief, right? You believe in your own talent. You believe that this is something that you want to do. And everybody is creative. Everybody is unique. And this is something that I talk about with the kids that I work with a lot. Especially kids that are going through high school changes and stuff like that are really uncomfortable and horrible that we all remember very well. And you have people telling you different things. They're just spitting at you all the time. you're too fat, too thin, too tall, too short, you're too something. And it took me a very long time, especially as somebody who works with your emotions all the time, that to realize what all of that really meant was they're just insecure about themselves, and it's all just outward projection on somebody that might be easy to be picked on. That was me. But to the point, we are all unique. We actually have a quote here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
This is from Rainer Maria Rilke, and it might be Rilke. But we have this up I live with another writer. We have this up on our billboard. There is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is or how valuable it is or how it compares to other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. And that's something that my teacher from the American Academy had up on our wall. And it's true, there's no handprint like yours ever in this world. And so to be able to hopefully I'm starting to mentor kids again, and hopefully being able to make that handprint, with everybody else. You're 100% unique. You are you. They're not you. So who cares what they think? Who cares what they say? It's what you want to do and how you want to make your life and how you want to make other lives better.
Right. So one of the great opportunities during these last few months has been, as we've been stuck at home, we've had a lot more time to do different things and develop new talents and new skills. So a lot of kids who hadn't previously done anything are now looking at creating videos and writing stories and being more creative. And in your own career, it's been interesting to see how you've grown and evolved as a creator. So, early on it was just performing, but now you're doing a lot more of the writing and the producing and things like that. As you've kind of transitioned into that more creative side of things, is it a completely different world? Do you feel more or less fulfilled? How has it been going from just being a performer to now being involved in so many different things?
Well, I got into producing because I was bored, and I started, I was nannying on the weekends. I wasn't booking anything. I think I had just booked a big commercial, super excited about it, and then I got nothing after that for months.
Right.
So I was bored during the week, and I started interning at a production company. I love research. I'm a huge research nerd. I will sit there for hours reading about Marilyn Monroe, and so I was really, really into that. They offered me a job as an assistant, and then as an executive assistant, and then we opened a management arm, and we had a manager come on board, and all the scripts came through me. So I was the creative exec, I was the executive assistant, I was his personal assistant. I was wearing all of these crazy hats, and really good at it. And I had no idea that's one of my friends came up to me and said, and I'd worked with him as an actor before, and he said, I've got this script I think that you'd be great to produce. And I was like, that's a lot of work. I can't do that. He said, Allie, that's what you're doing now. You realize that. It's like, oh, I mean, I was going through contracts. I was going through all of these things that I was not qualified to be doing. But they trusted me with it. So that was fine. Because I learned a lot from it. And then I took that and I produced my first film. Someone said, why don't you just do it yourself? So I said, okay. What does that mean? And it was a huge, huge learning curve. I thought it would be super easy. All you have to do is put all the pieces together. Just a little puzzle. So a lot of the biggest part of the learning curve was learning the technical side of things, and also how to still maintain being creative and having some sort of creative say to it. One project after another, you kind of get there a little bit easier. And then because, as actors, we're a little ego driven, I want to say. put myself in the first film, and it wasn't like a big role because I knew I couldn't do the whole thing, but there's definitely takes in that film where I'm like, I can see my brain going, because we didn't have a lot of money to do it either. I could see my brain going, okay, I have to get dinner started in half an hour, and her wardrobe is off, and I got to get it, because I was doing everything. I learned you can't do everything, that's for sure. It's okay to ask for help. And once I started to learn how to delegate and do that, the second project got easier. And then the third project, I got more creatively involved. And then the fourth project, I created entirely, and it was my baby. And I was able to keep the creative part. And now I've learned a lot of the technical stuff. And as an actor too, to be an effective actor or actress, I also have learned that you do need to know, technically where you are, what you're doing, where your lighting is. Somebody's standing in your light, somebody, all of those little things, just being able to adjust yourself accordingly makes a huge difference. So holistically, I think that helped my experience as an actor as well, was learning the production side of things.
That's really cool. I've loved hearing your whole story, because early on you talked about how maybe your education wasn't the best of experience and things like that. But, I went to college for 13 years. I've been in education all my life. And what I see from your story is I see a lifelong learner. I see someone who's progressing, figuring things out. That doesn't mean you have to be in formal schools all the time. It means that we're looking at learning and growing. And you're certainly a great example of that, and have this awesome life that you've carved out for yourself because you're pursuing your passion, and saying no to discrimination, saying no to failed opportunities and things like that. So really an inspirational story. As we wrap up here, first, thank you so much for coming on today. I think this has been so good for kids to kind of get a peek into what is happening in Hollywood and the opportunities that exist there, but also that, it's a grind and it's difficult. Do you have any just final words of advice for kids who might be thinking of pursuing a career into show business? What do you wish you'd known 20 years ago?
That's a good one. I think the biggest couple of them. A couple things that I think are now just kind of listening to my own story. It's okay to say no. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay and absolutely necessary to have a voice. I don't feel like I had a voice for a long time. And speak up for yourself. Advocate for yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. And do the work. If that's something you really want to do, there's work involved. And it's fun when you're on set. Ooh, I don't know about right now. After COVID times, we'll see. But
right.
It's a lot of fun on set. It always feels like a family. It always feels fun and amazing and everything like that. But you have to do the work to get there.
Well, Allie, thank you so much for being with us today, and for sharing all the highs and the lows with our audience. If our students want to learn more about you or follow you in social media, is there a best place where I should direct them?
Sure. AllieRivera.com. It's my website. It has a little bit about what I'm producing next, and it has a little bit about what I was just cast in. It has a little bit about where to find me on social media, which most of it's Allie Rivera. It's Allie Rivera.
Awesome. And that's Allie, Allie, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Allie.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.